This, or this? Which JJK domain is your favorite? I'll bet you'd be surprised to find out that most of the JJK fandom is sleeping on our boy Yuta. And his extra spectacular domain, aka the authentic mutual love. However, there are certain facts about this domain that we'll talk about in the later parts of the video, which I bet you didn't know. Let's go! Now, right from the beginning of the series, it was established pretty early that even though all sorcerers have different curse techniques, whether they be innate or non-innate, and their falling into either category depends on tons of reasons, which we won't get into in this video, the pinnacle of a sorcerer's power is his or her domain expansion. And as we see Gojo use his domain for the first time, shocking Gojo because, let's be honest, none of us expected a one-eyed fool with a ridiculous outfit casting domains out in the open. But in any case, it was shocking because even the best sorcerers never developed their own. But what's with the rarity behind them, and what's even rarer about Yuta'S Domain? Well, let's take an example of the two strongest domains which clashed in Shinjuku: Gojo's Infinite Void and Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine. Gojo had the classic closed domain with his cursed energy imbued in it, giving it the traits of the 6 eyes, where in the case of Sukuna, it was quite the opposite. Although his domain was pretty tame in terms of the complexity of the power it held, it was the only domain that wasn't closed in, and that's been seen only once in the entire story. But with Yuji out there stealing all kinds of techniques, who knows? We might see another open domain. And talking about open, we could also consider Megumi's Chimera Shadow Garden as an open one as well. However, it was deemed to be incomplete, so we know that it would follow the basic principle of the closed domain. But coming back to the topic, Yuta'S Domain was what we would consider the wet dream of every JJK fan, apart from the scenery, of course. With crosses and swords dug all around the domain, it could actually be the best in terms of the badassness. But yeah, we're not that shallow in this analysis. Just kidding. I'd personally give it a 10 on 10 if it were up to me, but the JJK Stan squadron would trample me. In any case, the crosses there might be for aesthetic purposes, but the swords weren't, as each sword held a cursed ability that Yuta had previously copied, and that included heavy hitters like Yuki, and yes, Sukuna as well. So yeah, OP Cursed Spirit Companion, OP Sensei, OP Cursed Ability, and even OP Domain Expansion. My man Yuta has it all. But diving even deeper into the mysteries of Yuta'S Domain, there hasn't really been any clarification by Gege regarding its other intricacies. For example, the domain has a lot of swords, and Yuta gains the copied curse technique once he takes the sword in his hand. So, several questions arise from here. Can Yuta just transfer the technique for use once he touches the sword? Or does he have to be firmly holding it? Does each sword actually contain a curse technique, or are some of them empty, like bluff swords, which would be a pretty standard tactic compared to the other complex techniques and binding vows? And third, how long does the technique's effect last once Yuta has picked up the sword? Now, all of these questions are valid. And you might be wondering that there are at least 10 more such questions that you would like answered. But let's be a bit honest. We're all the same here, speculating and obsessing over a hypothetical character with a hypothetical power fighting a hypothetical adversary. Ah, curse you, Gege! In any case, there are some other specifics we must get into apart from these 3 questions, which are: how exactly did Yuta construct a domain while using his innate copy technique, and is there a chance that he could actually construct a domain while copying another technique? Well, according to Sukuna, that is something that happened here. Sukuna in his monologue hypothesized that Yuta might have constructed the basic structure of the domain, basing it on the Angel's curse technique, which cancels or essentially nullifies other curses. So basically, the sure hit in Yuta'S Domain is Angel's innate technique, which made it a bit terrifying, to be honest. And for those who have a weak memory, let me remind you of the first time Angel met Sukuna in the Culling Games. The century-old king of curses almost died under the impact of Jacob's ladder. If it were not for Sukuna's cunningness in luring Angel, there were question marks on Sukuna's expiration date being preponed. And in another such case, the prison realm, which was deemed to be unbreakable from the inside or the outside, was shattered by Angel with not much thought, which just goes to show that the technique is a hack in the JJK world. But Yuta has not just one or two, but several such hacks right in his domain. But we're talking about the infamous Sukuna here, and he isn't just called Yuji's uncle, I mean the king of curses, for nothing. As my man stood his ground with his fight against 3 fighters, and possibly 4 if you count Maki waiting outside. But during that fight, after seeing Rika and Yuji working together along with Yuta, some other cool observations can also be made amongst the bad art of the chapter, which is the passive help Yuta provides to Itadori in his domain. And one of my favorite manga panels of JJK is in this chapter as well, wherein Sukuna asks what all the sorcerers have been up to the past month, and Yuji just stupidly replies that they've been training rigorously, while Yuta just straight up claims that they cheated. That was awesome. But in any case, while assaulting Sukuna, he displayed a fantastic use of the thin icebreaker, and even Sukuna's own cleave to provide the perfect cover for Yuji and Rika, who were continually attacking Sukuna. You know what that scene reminds me of? Remember the final fight in Dragon Ball's Tournament of Power, where an Android 17 provides cover for Goku and Frieza while they handle Jiren? The fight kinda reminded me of that scene. But yet again, the dream of a clean finish was shattered along with Yuta'S Domain once Maki entered the fray. Now, in a battle this close, we would be fools to develop notions of Yuta'S Domain reappearing, because there is no way Yuta is coming back from the claws he took directly, as it almost fully severed his arm. But there are still chances of him reappearing, given that no canonically important character has ever died off screen. But now that those words have come out of my mouth and I've realized that I'm talking about Jujutsu Kaisen, this might turn out to be true. But fingers crossed, considering Ueui might have taken them to a safe hole to recover. But setting aside the topic of Yuta'S Domain and delving deep into the story of JJK as it stands, I think we're headed to a very complicated and unique ending to ever come out of a shonen manga. And I mean, with the kind of content Gege has pushed out of the crevices of his brain, I'd have to argue that JJK isn't even a shonen at this point. It's a full-on seinen genre story. However, with Todo returning to the latest chapter and Chozo dying, I truly believe that Gege could in fact give us the usual power of friendship triumphing over everything, with the power of friendship replaced by the power of brotherhood in this one. Okay, I'm just kidding. But practically speaking, the character head that appeared in the last panel of chapter 260, which many people believe to be Gojo Satoru, is returning from the dead after 24 freaking chapters. But there's an even bigger but in this theory, as the monologue clearly states Sukuna is having a vision in the smoke while cursed energy outpour is dripping rapidly. So yeah, it could actually be an anemia-induced hallucination. But even if it is, the hallucination is certainly not Gojo. And even though I like to stay away from predictions as much as possible, I'd like to put in my 10 cents for this one. This could actually be another 6-eye user that Sukuna might have encountered in the Heian era, which actually justifies him taking Gojo seriously enough and stealing Megumi's body to defeat him. He could have known the power of the 6 Eyes was too much to handle, as he was almost killed by fighting a user with him in the past. In any case, even if it's a new, unnamed character, given that literally there's no modern day character left for Gege to pull out of his arse, only a character from the olden times makes sense. With that, I'll leave you with the imagination of Gege pulling Gojo out of his ass during his creation, and you'll have to live with that. Just like the video, if you like what I'm putting through, comment your prediction down below. See ya!